Today, we're going through a mock interview question focused on increased in search ads. And to address this question, today we have Shriti, who will join us in going through this problem. And welcome, Shriti. And could you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Sundeep. I'm Shriti. I am a product development analyst with American Express. I've been working here for the past 1 year. Before this, I was a senior data analyst with Uber. And now I'm looking to progress my career as a data scientist for any FANG company.
Awesome. Great to have you here, Shriti. So let's start.
Let's say you work for a search engine company. The company has increased the number of ads shown after a subset of searches. The data we see that the total amount of revenue is up, but the total number of user searches is down. Is this good or bad? All right. We see that the total amount of revenue is up, but the total number of user searches is down. All right. So I think our product statement's goal is to understand if this is good or bad, right? If the revenue we're getting is good or bad, right?
Yeah. So it's an open-ended question and would love to know your initial thoughts before we dive deep.
So when we talk about revenue, so what kind of revenue are we talking about? Are we just talking about the revenue we get from searches, or is this just related to a search?
Yeah, so the revenue here is revenue that we're getting from the ads.
So just from the ads. All right. Ad revenue. Yeah, because this is quite open-ended and the user search is down. So are we looking at a particular subset of users because it says a subset of search?
Right. So let's assume that the initial data comes from a certain subset because we haven't, let's say, done this at the entire scale of the company. For example, a search engine like Google. So let's say the results, the initial data that we have seen is from a certain subset of users.
Right. Okay. But our revenue is just dependent on the ad. Like whatever ad we click, that's how we get the revenue, right?
Yeah, from those particular users who were exposed to this.
So it's safe to say that the click-through rate is the metric to understand the revenue for the ad.
Yeah, that could be one of the metrics, yes.
And how are we analyzing the user searches? Like, how are we analyzing the number of user searches?
For the number of user searches, we have the users that were sampled for this experiment, and we look at their session. And based on those sessions, we see how many searches they did.
Okay, so we can say that the average time a user is spending on searching is down, but the total click-through rate is up for a revenue.
Yeah. So here, what the question says is that the total number of user searches is down. So we can't really say whether it correlates with more time for the session or not. But that could be one of the hypotheses, yes.
Got it. Can we correlate user searches with engagement? Like that is the how a person is engaging with the with the search
experience, right?
Yes, right, got it.
So those are all very good clarifying questions, and yeah, look forward to how you think about tackling this problem.
Right. So how I see this problem is that we need to find some correlation between the engagement versus the revenue. I think just a quick last question is that when we are analyzing the data, because we are looking at the revenue and the engagement, what kind of external factors could also be considered here? Like, for instance, let's say it's a sales season and that's why my click-through rate is more than usual. Like if I'm talking about, let's say it's the holiday season, it's a sales season, we have a lot of ads there. So that's why we have the revenue is up because of that. So, like, can we consider that as an edge case as well?
Right. Yeah, external factors could be contributing to this sort of insight that we see. However, we can consider that more as an edge case, and let's say that what we are seeing in the data is sort of intrinsic to the user experience and the search engine itself.
Got it. All right. Okay, to start with resolving this problem, I would start by defining a metric.
Sure.
So I would define two metrics, which is the average click-through rate, and also the number of user searches.
Okay.
And let's say we are doing this for a weekly search, so we can just say weekly.
Okay.
Now that we have two metrics, we could probably see how they will fare. So I will start by, we'll divide our audience into two groups, which would be A, where we see that the average CTR is going up and the number of searches are going down.
Okay.
Which is currently the case.
Right.
And B could be that they're both going up. Right?
Okay.
Sorry, just one more question. When we say, is this good or bad, what exactly is the goal of our business?
Right. Yeah. That's a very good question. So we should think of a North Star metric. For the purpose of this problem, we can say revenue is, to drive more revenue is the goal of the business.
Right. To drive more revenue. Got it. So I think one would be if they're inversely proportional and one is if they're directly proportional. So A could be our control group and B could be our treatment group.
Okay.
Then I would, of course, we would randomly sample our audience for A and B. Let's say for the purpose of simplicity, we are keeping it less than 30 sample size. Then we will set up our null hypothesis.
Okay.
So for our null hypothesis, the average CTR is going up and the number of searches are going down.
Right.
But our alternate hypothesis would be that they're inversely proportional. Then we would,
One question here, just to think about the problem. What you're stating as hypothesis here is actually the outcome that we've already observed, right? So the revenue is going up, but the number of searches is going down. So in terms of stating your hypothesis, what do you think is driving this behavior?
Right. We could say that there is no difference in our revenue and the searches as there. No, what we could say that the revenue is inversely proportional to searches. And our alternate hypothesis would be that the revenue is directly proportional.
Okay. And what could be some of the underlying reasons for either hypothesis?
For being inversely proportional, what I could think is that our search ranking algorithm is such that we are getting a direct result and we don't have to increase our number of searches. So for instance, if I'm searching for, let's say, jeans, and I directly get all the jeans ads I want and I'm directly going for it.
Understood.
But if
makes sense.
So I think the the search ranking and how it is positioned is the underlying how we could
Okay.
drive it.
Okay, that could be one of the reasons for this behavior, right? And what about the alternate hypothesis? What could be driving that behavior?
The alternate hypothesis could be that same that we might have to do a lot of searches to get our results. But the ads could be such that it is in every search we are going through some ad.
Right. Okay, makes sense. All right. Let's move on.
Right. So now that we have set up our null and alternate hypothesis, we would start by performing a t-test. So I'd say for the sake of simplicity, we've kept our sample size less than 30. So we will perform a t-test on both t-test on both the control and the treatment group. Then we would analyze our results to check if it is statistically significant.
Okay.
By that, I mean that if our p-value is less than the t-score, then we would okay.
Yeah, go on. That's fine.
Yeah. If p-value is less than the t-score, then we would accept.
Do you mean less than alpha?
Yeah, less than alpha, 0.05.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, then we will reject our null hypothesis.
Okay.
Else we will accept it. Another way could be if we can define a confidence interval. Let's say we have a confidence interval of 95%.
Right.
And then we will check if our t-score falls inside the confidence interval.
Understood. Shriti, can you also expand the answer box? So let's say you have designed this A/B experiment, you run a t-test, you see results.
Yeah.
Let's say p is less than 0.05 in this case. How would you validate the experimental result? Do you think the fact that it's statistically significant explains what is happening, or there might be some other things that may be happening? How would you be doubly sure about the findings, and what would you recommend to, let's say, the product team to actually make sense of this insight? And is it a good thing or bad thing, coming back to the problem?
I think we should conduct multiple iterations of our experiment, because we can't just take one, let's say experiment number 1 gives us a statistically significant result, but that could also open up to a type 1 error, which is a false positive.
Okay.
So I believe that multiple iterations of the experiment could probably give us a better overview of what our result, like how our result will perform in the future.
Right.
Secondly, I think we should be aware of type 1 and type 2 errors, which is false positive and false negatives. Okay. And I believe there are certain algorithms we can use to negate it. Like, for instance, we could probably increase our sample size. We could probably increase the time period of our experiment.
Right. Understood.
We should also see if this is viable in a business way. Like, for instance, if what is the cost benefit analysis of the alternate hypothesis that we are proposing. So, for instance, whatever search ranking algorithm is working now, it's already in place, it's already done. But now what if we will propose a new algorithm. So that would take resources and a lot of work.
Okay. Sounds good. Uh, cool. Any other final comments, Shruti, on the problem and your solution?
I believe revenue cannot be just analyzed by user searches. I think we could have multiple different variables for that as well. For instance, it could be the number of new users we're getting for our search engine. What is the average session time? What is how many ads we have, which are actually the position of our rankings, and those ads, like how much actually contributing those revenues. So there are multiple factors to be considered, and not just number of searches.
Right. Okay. Sounds good. Cool. So we can close on this problem here, and I'll share some insights and feedback. So I think since this question was asked at Expedia and Google, right? So we're talking about companies that operate at internet scale with, sort of hundreds of millions of users. And at that scale, we have to be very confident in terms of the experimental design and whatever insights we get. So that is one. So I liked the questions that you asked because it's quite an open-ended problem. And is this good or bad can be interpreted either way, right? And it's the job of a product analyst or product data scientist to do the right kind of experiments and analytics and sort of further experimentation to justify, to strongly sort of convince the product team to sort of actually go ahead with that, right? So I think you had asked good set of clarifying assumptions. And one of your hypotheses in terms of why the revenue is inversely proportional to the number of user searches, coming down to the quality of the search algorithm itself, is quite plausible in the real world itself. For instance, if we talk about Google, and in recent times, since large language models came out, we also see sort of conversational experience, right? Where users might get the answers just by chatting with Google Gemini on the search page, and they might not bother to go through all the ads or the search results that come up, right? So this is quite a plausible scenario driving the sort of hypothetical behavior that we are discussing in this question. One feedback here would be that at this scale, when we're talking about Google, the sample size has to be representative, right? So just 30 users would not cut it. So it has to be significant, and there you would have to come up with an estimate of what should be a good sample size so that you have enough statistical power to draw meaningful and viable inferences. Okay? And another feedback would be on the choice of the statistical test itself. So here we talked about a t-test, which assumes that the underlying variable is normally distributed. So we will first need to actually sort of look at the distribution or the long-term distribution of the number of user searches or CTR or revenue and see how that is distributed before come up with a kind of statistical test to perform. So these two things could further have made your answer solution much stronger. But overall, I think you walked through the problem quite well and understood the problem from a business perspective. You came up with metrics that were relevant and went through the problem in a systematic manner, right from clarifying questions to understanding the requirements to solution and to how to actually validate the solution that you have. Right? So that's good. Now coming back to you, Shruti, what do you think you've learned from this mock question, and what would you do differently, let's say in your upcoming interviews, for a similar product case study question.
Thank you for the feedback. I think what all you mentioned, I would definitely take in account next time, because I think I've had a similar experience in Google recently. I interviewed, yeah. So nice. I think what feedback I got from them was that my like I knew the framework, but I think they wanted me to expand on the metrics.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. Yeah, that's quite valid feedback, because I think for this particular role of a product data scientist, you have to combine understanding of the business, the metrics, statistics, and experimental design. And a lot of times it's important to ask why, question the problem statement itself, right? And could there be some missing information that is not provided, which the interviewer can supply to you as well. So yeah, that's great. Sounds good. So thank you, Shruti, for your elaborate solution to this product case study question. To the audience, if you enjoyed this question, please share your feedback and comments and how you would tackle this question. And also let us know if there are any other questions that you would like us to explore during these mock interview sessions. So thank you for having us.
Thank you, Sundeep. It was quite fun.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.